I just spent a month at altitude as a relatively beginner runner. Now, I'm sure you're aware that a lot of professional runners go to altitude to gain a training benefit and then come down to sea level and run their fastest PBs. But can an average Joe like me gain any benefit from spending time at altitude? In today's video, I'm gonna go through a couple of things I've learnt while spending a month at altitude. And after that, I'm gonna let you know if I think it even works. Am I fitter? Am I faster because I spent a month at altitude? It's not as black and white as you may think, but I'll get into that. Oh, I'm back. It has been a while. Yes, I posted a video last week, but that was a video I filmed a long time ago. As you can imagine, life's been a bit crazy at the moment with Philly's Marathon, spending a week in Houston, having second Christmas with the family, and taking a little time off just for ourselves. It's been a bit mad. So I haven't really had the time to focus on my content, which is a bit sad, but hey ho, you got to prioritize some things. Come say hello. We haven't seen the cats on the vlog for ages, have we? Been away. I don't want to be on the vlogs. I like my private life. And because I haven't recorded anything for quite a while, after my thoughts and things that I've learned from training at altitude, I'll give you a little training update because my half marathon is in less than 2 months. I'm getting a bit nervous now, but yeah. We'll get into that. But first, let's talk about a few things that I learned, that I found out while training at 7,000 feet. And here's the first thing that I learned at altitude. It is really hard, especially for someone like myself who hasn't been running for a very long time in the big scheme of things. As Philly and other coaches and other professional runners bang on about, consistency is key. They've been running for 10 plus years and all of that fitness stacks up. I have relatively low fitness. I have only run properly for a year. So that could feed into the reason why I felt that it was so hard. So I've also been to altitude before. I went to Font-Romeu in November for 10 days. And I know to gain any benefit, you need to stay at altitude for 3+ weeks. But Font-Romeu is at 5,600 feet. Now, Flag is at 7,000 feet. And my naive brain thought that it was gonna be very similar. It took me about a week to get used to the altitude up in the French Pyrenees. But my God, it took me 3+ weeks to get used to the altitude in Flagstaff. And even then, my last session, when I thought I was getting back to kind of normal sessions, the last session absolutely killed me. So what was the takeaway from finding out that altitude is actually really hard, especially at those higher altitudes up near 7,000 feet? Well, you just have to take it really easy and for as long as you need to. There's no point pushing yourself. You're just going to get yourself into a hole. The probability of injury happening, overtraining just increases tenfold. I think I was lulled into a false sense of security because Philly takes about a week to normalize to altitude, but I have to remember she's done a lot more altitude training than I have. She's also been running for much longer than I have, and she's a pro. It is her job. Now let's go for a run, long run today, Sunday. Now on the run, I will take you through the second thing that I learned from going to altitude. Also, quick side note before we get on this run. I have been casually wearing the New Balance Fresh Firm More Trail. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, something like that. It's the trail version of the Fresh Firm Mores, and they have been pretty good, you know. I have obviously been wearing my Brooks Glycerin GTS, and they have been great. But these have been great. So I would recommend these for trail running if you are interested. They're very cushioned and you can even get away with running on the road for a little bit. And that's what I like about them because I need to run on roads to get to trails here and the same when I was trialing these out in the US. So yeah, I'd give them a big thumbs up. Let's go for the long run. So what's number 2 then? What's the second thing that I learned
It's quite a quick one. It's that you genuinely have to change the paces that you run at altitude, even when you get used to it. Because you're up so high, because there's not enough oxygen, there's no way that your body can function 100% like it does at sea level. So say you're doing a 6x1k session, each 1k rep needs to be adjusted to the time that you think you can run at a K as fast as possible at 7,000 feet. Even when you may have been there for months, still have to convert it. And that's why the pros go down to nearer sea level, say 3,000 feet like at Camp Verde, and do their harder sessions down there so they can work as hard as they would at sea level and then come up and gain the benefit of less oxygen where they're living and sleeping and doing their easy runs. So I found that really, really interesting.
Long run done. It's been a big 2 days. Because of traveling back up north, my week was a bit skewed. So I actually did a session yesterday plus a long run today, and I picked up at the end because I felt good. But I am definitely going to take a day, if not two, to rest this off, because I think my chorus is saying 80 hours of recovery. But yeah, I'll put up the run here. It was good, it felt good, and maybe that's a little clue into kind of update on my fitness that will be coming later in the video. So what's the third thing that I learned while spending a month at 7,000 feet? Well, this is a little bit of a tangent off the it's hard learning that I discussed earlier in the video. And I found this especially in Flagstaff, but also in Font-Romeu last year, is that just living your life is more tiring. I slept so well in Flagstaff because every day I went to bed exhausted, regardless of whether I had run or not. Because there is less oxygen, your body is always working harder if you're just walking upstairs, if you're walking up hills, if you're carrying something, if you're slightly stressed. It emulates everything, so everything is just harder, especially when you're not used to it. So I had to take more precautions when it came to rest and recovery, and my training was a little bit all over the place while we were there. You know, some weeks I couldn't do a long run or the session had to be forfeit, but I made those decisions based on the fact that if I had probably done them, it would have been at a detriment to my training and I would have gone backwards even more than I already was, because I wasn't able to run as fast and as far when I first got to Flagstaff. So yeah, a weird one, but interesting nonetheless.
Hello? Someone filming something? Or is the camera just here? Switched on for no reason. Weird.
All right, final thing, and then I promise I'll get on to a little bit of a training update, whether I think altitude actually worked for me. And this one is not really a learning as such, but something that was different from Font-Romeu. Flagstaff, the pro running community there is massive. You've got multiple teams out there, Under Armour, Hoka, there are others, but I can't remember who they are. But the amount of pro runners there is immense. Because it's such a large place and it's so high, it draws all these amazing people. So the community that we felt just being there, living with a couple of elite runners as well, I think it just made the whole experience so much nicer that we had a group, almost like a family formed by the end of the month, which was just really, really lovely. And I think I can speak for Philly, but we'll be spending a lot more time in Flagstaff over the next couple of years because we've definitely made some friends for life. Go Bills. Okay, what you've been waiting for. Do I think altitude works for me? Kind of. It's been really delayed. And I have to say, from the experience that I've had from Philly and the way that she's talked about it in the past, is that altitude will affect people completely differently. So Philly has learned that she'll spend 5 weeks at altitude, come down within the first couple of days, it gives her a really good benefit. So I've only had one proper experience with altitude, so I don't think I can give a definitive answer to say whether it works for me. But what I can say, the week or two after I came down, I felt dreadful. I felt like my breathing was really high in my chest. I couldn't work really hard because I would just hyperventilate. The first session back from altitude, which was about a week and a bit after we came down, because we spent nearly a week in Houston, and then I did my first session at my parents' house. And that was a train wreck. I was hyperventilating. I really couldn't push myself, otherwise I would just lose my breath. So that was a bit discouraging, but there is a positive. We've been down from altitude for about 2.5 weeks, I think, 2 weeks maybe. And I now feel like I'm seeing a benefit. Now, is that to do with the fact that I have come from altitude? Or whether it's just a case that I now have been running between 15 and 22 miles a week for the last couple of months. I'm not sure, but I do feel the fittest that I've ever been. That long run that I just went on was fantastic. The session that I did on Saturday, again, I felt really, really good. So I think I need to test it a little bit more. And whenever we go out to the US, I probably will spend the whole month because it's really not worth me flying for a week or two. When Philly goes to altitude later this year in Europe, I'll probably just go for a week to 10 days because it's no point trying to find house sitters. It's just a little bit too much. But when I go to the US next, maybe I can test it a little bit more, push myself a little bit more, and just really see whether it works for me and test it properly, maybe doing a race a couple of days after I come down. I was gonna do a 5K time trial in a park with a good friend of ours in Houston, but the weather a couple of days after the marathon was horrendous, like -12. So I was like, nah, I'm good. So what's next? Basically more of the same. Creeping up my mileage a little bit. I've just managed to get back to kind of like 22 miles a week, which is kind of like my top so far, because I'm now back into some sort of routine at home, which is nice. So just trying to push that mileage a little bit, kind of creeping up towards 30, hopefully before the half marathon. And with the half marathon, I think it would be really cool to hit a time. I don't know what that time is yet. Because it's my first half marathon, I think it's more about going out there, trying to have some fun, enjoying the kind of marathon and half marathon community a little bit, and just, yeah, put a post down, put a marker down, really. And before I sign off, 2 little things. I just want to say a massive thank you for all of your incredible, amazing comments, messages on Instagram regarding not only the marathon video itself, but the recap video. We've been blown away with all the messages, and yeah, I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to everyone. And then exciting news, if you hadn't watched Philly's recap video, she mentioned that the new merch is coming. We've put a date, the 29th of February. The leap year day. That is when we're gonna launch the merch. So put that in your diaries. We'll be posting more information about that soon. We're probably gonna hide the designs until the day of the launch. So yeah, we're gonna keep it a little bit under wraps this time, which hopefully builds the anticipation a little bit more. So yeah, put that in your diaries, and as always, I'll see you next time.